I noticed it in the silence first. Not the absence of sound, no, the apartment was never truly silent. There was always something. The low electrical hum from the refrigerator, the intermittent ticking from the wall clock that never quite kept time but insisted on pretending it did, the faint, almost imperceptible scraping noise of branches brushing against the window when the wind leaned too hard against the building. No, this was something else. A different kind of silence, kind that arrives inside a person. It was in the way she paused before answering. Not long enough for anyone else to question it. Not long enough to be called hesitation. Just what? A microscopic fracture in the rhythm of her responses, a space, a calculation, a decision being made. I only noticed it because I had memorized her before. Did you eat? Her voice came from the kitchen, soft, casual, threaded with something I couldn't yet name. I watched her from the couch without moving my head. Only my eyes shifted, slow, deliberate, like if I moved too quickly I might disturb something fragile, something forming in the air between us. She stood with her back to me, cutting something. The knife moved in a steady rhythm, tap, slide, tap, slide. Too steady. Yeah, I said. The word left my mouth automatically. It always did. We had routines like that. Pre-recorded responses to pre-recorded questions. It kept things smooth. Predictable. Safe, she paused. There. It was so small that if I hadn't already been looking for something, anything, I might have missed it. The knife hovered midair for half a second longer than necessary. Okay, she said. And then the cutting resumed. Tap, slide. Tap, slide. But now the rhythm felt wrong. Or maybe I had made it wrong. I tried to return my attention to the television, but the images didn't hold. They flickered, meaningless. Sound without substance. My mind kept drifting back to that pause. That fraction of a second. Why pause at yeah? It was the correct answer. The expected answer. There was nothing in it that required processing. Unless, no. I felt the thought form and immediately resisted it. It was too early for that kind of thinking. What? Dramatic. My brain had a tendency to leap, to construct narratives out of fragments. I exhaled slowly, deliberately, trying to flatten the thought before it could take shape. It's nothing. It's nothing. People pause. People think. People exist in ways that don't revolve around you. I repeated that last one twice in my head. People exist in ways that don't revolve around you. It sounded reasonable, healthy even, but it didn't settle, because the silence was still there, inside me. Can you set the table? Her voice again. Normal. Always normal. I stood, my body responding before my mind caught up, and walked toward the kitchen. Each step felt slightly heavier than it should have, like gravity had increased without informing me. She didn't look at me as I passed behind her. That wasn't unusual. Or was it? I tried to recall how often did she look at me when I entered the room. Did she usually turn, smile, acknowledge? Or had I just assumed she did? Memory is a dangerous thing. It edits itself quietly. I opened the cabinet and reached for the plate. My hand hesitated midair. I realized I couldn't remember which plates we had used the night before, or the night before that, or whether she had been the one to set the table recently, or if I had. The routines I thought were fixed suddenly felt unstable, like they had been rewritten without telling me. You okay? Her voice was closer now. I turned. She was watching me. And for a moment, just a moment, I felt something tighten in my chest so sharply that I had to suppress the urge to step back. Her expression was neutral, concerned maybe, but there was something beneath it, something observing. I'm fine, I said, too quickly. I heard it as soon as it left my mouth. Too fast, too defensive. Her eyes held mine for a second longer than usual. And then that pause. Again. Okay, she said. We ate in near silence. Not unusual, but not comfortable either. The sound of utensils against plates filled the space between us, sharp and repetitive. Every scrape felt louder than it should have been, like it was echoing off something inside my skull. I watched her without appearing to watch. Her movements were precise, controlled, too controlled. She chewed slowly, methodically, like she was aware of being observed, even though I hadn't given her any reason to think she was. Or had I? Had something shifted in me already, something subtle but detectable? People notice things, micro-expressions, Tiny changes in posture. The way breathing patterns shift under stress. Maybe she had noticed me noticing. The thought sent a thin, cold line down my spine. Work was busy, I asked. I didn't know why I asked it. Question felt like a reflex, something meant to maintain the illusion of normalcy. She swallowed, pausing. Yes, just one word. Too short. Or maybe that's how she always answered. I couldn't tell anymore. What about you? She added. There it was. The return question. Expected. Scripted. I mean, what? The usual, I said. I forced a small shrug, hoping it looked natural. She nodded. And then nothing. Conversation died there. Not abruptly. Not dramatically. Just, what? Faded. Like it had never intended to exist in the first place. After dinner, she stood and began clearing the table. I'll do it, I said, standing quickly. Too quickly again, she paused. That pause. Every time. Every single time. It's okay, she said. I've got it, I said. I'll do it. The words came out sharper than I intended. There was a moment, just a flicker, where something changed in her expression. Not anger. Not surprise. Something. What? Smaller. More contained. A calculation. All right, she said. When she stepped back, the sink filled with the sound of running water. I focused on the dishes, on the repetitive motion of washing, rinsing, stacking. Control. This was something I could control. The temperature of the water, the pressure, the sequence. Predictable. Stable. Behind me, I could feel her presence. Not physically, but, what? Aware. Like a weight pressing gently against the back of my thought. Was she watching me? I didn't turn. I didn't want to confirm it. Because if she wasn't watching, then the feeling was mine. And if the feeling was mine, what? That was worse. You've been quiet, she said. The words slipped into the space between the sound of water and the clink of porcelain. I froze. Not visibly, but internally everything tightened. Measured. Careful. I'm just tired, I said, a lie. Or maybe not. Fatigue can feel like this. Heavy. Distorted. She didn't respond immediately. Of course she didn't. There was always that pause. I counted it this time. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I turned off the water. The sudden silence was deafening. I dried my hands slowly, buying time, though I wasn't sure what for. When I turned around, she was standing in the doorway, watching me. Not openly. Not intensely. Just, what? There. You're sure you're okay? She asked. The question lingered in the air. And beneath it, something else. Something unspoken. Something that pressed against the edges of the words like it was trying to leak through. I looked at her. Really looked. And for a moment, a brief, disorienting moment, I felt like I didn't recognize her. Not physically. She looked the same. But something underneath had shifted. Or maybe it was me. I'm fine, I said. And this time I made sure it sounded slower. More controlled. More believable. She held my gaze. And then that pause. Longer this time. Just long enough for something inside me to start unraveling. All right, she said. Later in bed, the silence returned. Not the external silence. The internal one. She lay beside me, her back turned, her breathing steady. Too steady. I watched the subtle rise and fall of her shoulders in the dim light. Counted each breath. Tried to match. Failed. My own breathing felt uneven, intrusive. Loud. I turned onto my side, facing her. Close enough to reach out. I didn't. My hand hovered slightly above the mattress, fingers twitching with the impulse. To touch, to confirm, to anchor. But something stopped me, a thought. Sharp and immediate. What if she pulls away? The image flashed in my mind, her body tensing, shifting, creating space. That space again. That distance. I lowered my hands slowly, carefully, as if the air itself might react. Her phone buzzed. Once, softly, muted. But in the silence, it felt like a gunshot. Her breathing didn't change. Not immediately. But then a shift. Subtle. A fractional tightening. I saw it. Or I thought I did. My chest constricted. She didn't move. Didn't reach for it. Didn't acknowledge. But the awareness was there now. Between us. The phone buzzed again. This time she moved. Slowly. Casually. like it meant nothing. She reached for it, her back still turned to me, and tilted the screen just enough that I couldn't see it. That angle. That specific, deliberate angle. My throat tightened. She looked at it. Pause, of course. Always the pause. And then a small exhale. Not quite a sigh. Not quite neutral. Something in between. Bam, she said. Unprompted. I hadn't asked. I hadn't made a sound. But she explained anyway. My heart started beating harder. Not faster. Harder. Each beat felt like it was pressing outward, like it wanted to escape. Okay, I said. My voice sounded distant. Even to me. She set the phone down. Screen facing down, of course. And then she settled back into her position, breathing steady again, as if nothing had happened. But something had happened. I felt it, not in a clear, definable way, but in the way the silence had changed. It was no longer empty. It was full, crowded, pressing. I stared at the back of her head, at the strands of hair resting against her neck. Familiar, intimate, and suddenly unreachable. My mind started moving, slowly at first, then faster, replaying, analyzing. That pause, that angle, that explanation. Bam, why say it? Why offer information that wasn't requested? People do that when no. Dub. I squeezed my eyes shut. Too much, too fast. But the thoughts didn't stop, they layered. Dag. Contradicted. Built pressure. You're imagining things. But what if you're not? It's nothing. Then why does it feel like something? My breathing became shallow. I forced it deeper. Counted again. 1, 2, 3. But the rhythm wouldn't settle. Because beneath it all, something had shifted. Not in her. Not yet. But in me. And I couldn't tell if I had discovered something real, or if I had just begun to lose control. I opened my eyes. She hadn't moved. Still facing away. Still breathing steadily. I stared at her for a long time. Long enough for the darkness to start playing tricks, for shapes to distort slightly, for the outline of her body to feel unfamiliar again. And then slowly, carefully, I reached toward the nightstand. My fingers brushed against her phone. I froze. Every muscle in my body locked. Her breathing didn't change. I waited. 1 second. 2, 3. Nothing. Gently I wrapped my fingers around the phone. Lifted it. Slowly. So slowly that it felt like time itself was resisting. The weight of it in my hand felt heavier than it should have. Charged. Alive. I turned it. Just slightly. The screen remained dark. Of course it did. Locked. Protected. Hidden. I stared at it. My reflection faintly visible in the black surface. Distorted. Unclear. I didn't recognize myself in it. And for a moment, a brief, terrifying moment, I realized something. I wasn't just trying to see what was inside the phone. I was trying to confirm something else. Something deeper. Something worse. That the silence inside me had a reason. Or that it didn't. And I didn't know which possibility scared me more. Behind me, she shifted. Just slightly. My entire body went rigid. I placed the phone back down immediately. Too quickly. Too obviously. My heart slammed against my rib. She didn't turn. Didn't speak. But her breathing changed. Just a fraction. Enough. Enough for me to know something was no longer hidden. But I didn't know what. Not yet. And that was worse. Far worse. Because now we were both inside the silence. And it was no longer empty. It was watching. Waiting. Stretching. And I had the unbearable feeling that I had already understood everything. I just hadn't allowed myself to know it yet. Her breathing doesn't return to what it was. That's the first thing that refuses to settle. It tries to, there's an attempt at rhythm, an imitation of steadiness, but something in it stumbles. Not enough to be obvious, not enough to accuse, but enough that once noticed, it cannot be unnoticed. And now I'm listening. Not casually, not passively. I'm measuring. Each inhale, each exhale. The tiny space between them. That space becomes everything. Because it's in the spaces that truth hides. I lie completely still, my hands slowly retracting from the nightstand, inch by inch, as if distance alone might undo what just happened. But distance doesn't erase action. It only stretches its consequences. My fingers curl slightly against the sheet. The fabric feels rougher than it should. Or maybe my skin is more sensitive. Every sensation feels amplified now, as if my body has shifted into some heightened state without asking for permission. Her breathing again. There a hit. Small. Controlled. But real, she knows. The thought lands quietly, but it spreads instantly, like ink in water. She knows I touched it. Or she suspects. Or she felt the absence, the movement, the change in air. People feel things, especially when they're already alert. And she is alert. I can feel it. Even with her back turned, even with her body arranged in that careful, familiar position, there's a tension beneath it. A held awareness, mirroring mine. I close my eyes, not to sleep, just to remove one sense, to sharpen the others. The darkness presses closer, thicker. My mind starts reconstructing everything. Not in order, not cleanly, just fragments. Her pause in the kitchen, the angle of the phone. Bam, that word again. It echoes now, detached from its original tone, stripped of casualness. It sounds rehearsed, prepared, pre-existing, which means no. Don't jump, don't build, stay with what's real. But what is real? The question doesn't feel philosophical, it feels urgent, because something has shifted, and I can't locate the exact point where it began. Are you awake? Her voice cuts through the darkness. Softly, careful, too careful. My eyes open immediately, though I don't move. There's a part of me that wants to pretend, stay still, let the moment pass, gather more weight, but that part is quieter now. Slower, drowned out by something heavier. I'm awake, I say. My voice sounds wrong, flattened, like it belongs to someone observing from a distance. She doesn't turn, not fully, just enough that her head tilts slightly, her awareness extending backward without exposing herself. I thought you were asleep. Pause. Of course. I couldn't sleep, I reply. There's a temptation to add something else, to fill the space, but I don't. And the silence that follows, it stretches, longer than it should, longer than any normal conversation would allow. But neither of us interrupts it, because now the silence isn't empty. It's active. You've been different, she says it slowly, testing each word as it leaves her mouth. I feel something tighten in my chest, not sharp this time, but deep, like something being pulled inward. Different. The word feels like a mirror held up too close. Different how? I ask. I already regret the question as soon as it leaves me, because it gives her control, defines the frame. But it's too late. She breathes in, exhales, pausing. You're quieter, she says. Distracted, each word lands with precision. Measured, not accusatory, but not neutral either. Carefully placed. I let a small breath leave me, something like a soft exhale of acknowledgement. Just tired, I say again. The same answer. Radios. And I hear it now, how thin it sounds, how repetitive. Excuses become patterns when repeated. Patterns become evident. Shift. This time more noticeably. Her body turns slightly toward me, not fully, but enough that I can see the outline of her face in the darkness. I don't move. I don't adjust. I let her look, because I want to see what she sees. You don't seem tired, she says. Another pause. But something's off, there it is. Not a question, a statement. My mind reacts immediately, defensive, reactive, constructing explanations, but underneath that, something else moves. Something quieter. Something colder. She's watching you. The realization settles slowly, like sediment sinking. Not just tonight. Not just now. But before. Long enough to notice change. Long enough to track it. Long enough to say different with confidence. And suddenly the timeline in my head shifts. Because if she's been watching, then what has she seen? What do you think is off? I ask. I don't know why I push it. Maybe I want to hear it. Maybe I want to see how far she'll go. Or maybe I'm trying to measure something I don't fully understand yet. She exhales. There's something in that exhale. Not relief. Not frustration. Something. Waited. I don't know, she says. But the words don't land as uncertainty. They land as restraint. A choice not to say, a decision. And that is louder than any accusation. I swallow. My throat feels dry. There's a pressure building now, not sharp, not explosive, but dense, like something compressing slowly from all sides. I think you do, I say. The moment the words leave my mouth, I feel it, the shift, subtle, but undeniable. Her body stills, not rigid, just still, like everything inside her has paused to recalibrate. And then a breath, slower, measured. Why would you say that? She asked, softly, controlled, but beneath it a tightening. I feel it in my own body, mirrored, reflected, because now we're no longer circling. We've stepped into it, not fully, but enough. I stare at her silhouette, the familiar curve of her shoulder, the line of her neck so known, so unchanged. And yet everything feels different, because knowledge isn't always about fact. Sometimes it's about alignment, pieces settling into place without being fully visible. I don't know, I say. I echo her, deliberately. And for a moment, something almost resembling understanding passes between us. Not comfort, not connection, just recognition. The silence that follows is heavier than anything before. It doesn't stretch, it presses. And inside it, my thoughts begin to move again. Faster now, less controlled, fragments connecting, not cleanly, but insistently, the phone, the angle, the explanation, the pauses, her observation, her restraint. Each piece alone is nothing. Together they form something, not a clear picture, but a shape. And once you see the shape, you can't unsee it. Can I ask you something? Her voice again. Quieter now, closer. I nod before realizing she might not see it. Yeah, the pause, longer than usual. And in that pause, I feel something tighten to its limit, like a wire stretched just before it snapped. Did you touch my phone? The question lands softly, but it hits like impact, direct, unavoidable. No space to deflect, no room to reinterpret. And suddenly everything sharpens, the darkness, the air. My own heartbeat. I can hear it now, clearly, loud, too loud. There's a moment, a brief, suspended moment, where I consider lying. The reflex is immediate. Protect, deflect, maintain. But something stops me. Not morality, not guilt, something else, something more. Precise. Because lying would simplify things. And nothing about this feels simple anymore. Yes, I say. The word feels solid as it leaves me. Heavy, irreversible. She doesn't react immediately. Of course she doesn't. There's always that pause. But this one is different. Longer, deeper, filled with something I can't quite name. And in that space my mind doesn't race, it drops. Like an elevator losing its cables. Because now there's no ambiguity. We're inside, fully. Wide, her voice is quieter now. Not sharper, not louder. Just dripped. And that makes it worse. Because there's no emotion to anchor to, no anger, no hurt. Just the question. Wrong. I open my mouth, close it, because I don't have an answer that fits. Not one that explains without exposing something else. I don't know, I say. And this time it's true. Another silence. But this one feels different, not pressing, not stretching, just hollow, like something has been removed, and in its place nothing. Well, she shifts again, slowly, and this time she turns fully toward me. I can't see her clearly, but I can feel her gaze. Direct, unfiltered. What are you looking for? She asks. The question is quiet, but it cuts deeper than anything before. Because it assumes something. Not suspicion, not curiosity, but intent. And suddenly I feel exposed in a way I can't explain. Not because of what I've done, but because of what I don't know. I don't know, I repeat. The words feel weaker now, thinner, but they're all I have. She exhales, slowly, and for the first time there's something in it. Not relief, not frustration, something final. Okay, she says, just that. And then she turns away. The space between us feels wider now. Not physically, but in every other way. I stare at her back again. The same position as before. The same outline. But now it feels definitive. like a line has been drawn, not crossed, not acknowledged, just on there. My mind doesn't race anymore. That's the strange part. It slows, settles, but not into calm, into something else, something heavier, more certain. Because the shape I saw before, it's clearer now. Not complete, not detailed, but undeniable. And I realize something, something that sits quietly at the center of everything. I don't need to see the messages. I don't need confirmation, because understanding doesn't always come from evidence. Sometimes it comes from alignment, from the way things fit, too perfectly, too precisely, in ways they shouldn't. Her breathing steadies again. Or maybe it doesn't. Maybe I've stopped measuring, because the need to measure is gone, replaced by something else, something quieter, more permanent. I lie there staring into the darkness, feeling the weight of something settling inside me. Not breaking, not shattering, just shifting, like something has moved out of place and isn't going back. And the worst part, the part that sits deepest, heaviest, isn't what she did, or didn't do. It's this. I understood everything, before I ever saw anything, before she ever said anything, before there was proof. And I still don't know if that understanding came from truth, or from something inside me that has already started to come apart. Beside me she sleeps, or pretends to. I can't tell anymore. And that uncertainty, that permanent, quiet fracture stays, unmoving, unresolved. I close my eyes, but the silence doesn't leave, because now it isn't something between us. It's something inside me, and it's not empty anymore. It never will be again.